high protein blueberry scones. I have these in one of my weeks in my meal plans, and people just love them. See, they're really tasty, and they're making them all the time. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of make them today, especially on a Sunday when you would maybe enjoy a scone with your coffee. So let's get started. So the very first thing we're gonna do, and what's really important with these, is that we have cold grated butter. So you're gonna start with just a 1/4 cup butter, a stick or whatever, or you can measure it out, and we're gonna actually grate it. And you can even throw it in the freezer and then grate it afterwards. But it's super easy to do. But when it starts to get warm, it starts to kind of melt in your hands. So it can get a little bit messier, but when it's cold, it is good. I just have a fancy dancy little, I love this because I can grate stuff and it goes right into the container. I don't have to make a mess on the counter or another plate. So this is just a 1/4 cup of grated cheese, or grated, butter. And this recipe makes 10 scones. So 10 servings. And this is actually all the fat that's in it, is just this 1/4 cup of butter. And I suppose if you get any fat from your Greek yogurt, but the kind I'm using is, I think this might be a 2%, it's Faye. Yeah, no, this is a fat-free one. So all in all though, really good. So this recipe has, let me see, per scone, each scone is about 200 calories. So it's not, low calorie or calorie free. Sorry, I'm using my little camera that moves automatically. So hopefully it stays stable. It only has 6 grams of fat per serving. It has 32 grams of carbs. It actually has 2 grams of fiber, which you're probably getting from your blueberries. And it has 11 grams of protein in 1 scone. So, you could always have this scone. You could maybe have it with some eggs or something like that to give you a little bit more protein, or maybe a little omelet with some veggies, but kind of as a side dish. So now that we have grated our butter here, it looks kind of cool. It's just tiny little pieces of butter. I'm gonna actually throw this back in the freezer to keep it cold. All right. Now we are gonna add our flour, baking soda, and our baking powder. So I wanted to measure this out. I know in the recipe it has your flour in ounces, and I know not everybody measures everything, right? I just have a little scale here because I guess I like to measure. Sometimes it can make a difference. If you're packing in that flour, you can be actually making a drier product as compared to actually weighing it. It's just a little bit more precise, right? So I weighed my flour. It's 10.5 ounces, which comes out to be 2 1/4 cups of flour. So in case you want to know exacts. So 2 1/4 cups flour, and now we're gonna add our baking soda and our baking powder. And we're gonna have 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Hold on one quick second. I wanna make sure that nobody was wanting to join in the Facebook group. Let me do that real quick on my computer. I can't believe today is the last day of the Strong Start program. I hope that you all are having fun and enjoying, getting your workouts in, maybe working on protein, working on fiber. Okay, perfect. I did it. So, okay, great. Going back to my recipe. Okay. Yes, so I would love to hear if you've noticed any difference when it comes to cravings, when it comes to your energy levels, when you did kind of bump up protein and fiber, because those are the 2 areas that you're going to see it the quickest and the easiest, because those are the 2 areas that help to balance blood sugar control, and that's directly related to our energy levels. It's also helping with hormone balance. It's not balance, but supporting our hormones and just kind of makes things a little bit more on an even keel, right? Okay, so we're gonna have 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Gotta find my 1 teaspoon here. So here's 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Sorry, that's soda. I'm dreaming here. Goodness, I almost messed up. We only need 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, but we need 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder because I opened up the baking powder and then I started multitasking. So 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, okay? And 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Whew, that wouldn't have probably tasted good if I had had that much soda. All right, so 1.5 teaspoons powder. There's 1. Now let's do a little halvesy. Perfect. There we go. Now we're gonna throw in just 1/2 teaspoon of our sea salt. And I thought I had everything I needed, and then I realized I didn't have a fresh lemon. I had some lemon juice, and I was thinking, oh, I have lemon juice. Okay, no, we actually need lemon zest for this recipe. And you know what? If you don't have it, it's not the end of the world. It does give just a little bit of something, you know. Zest always gives just a little bit of that, you know, that tang in the back of your mouth. So I am a little sad that I don't have it, but it's all good. It's all good. All right, so we have our flour, baking powder, baking soda, and our sea salt. And if you have lemon zest, you're gonna zest 2 teaspoons of lemon zest. So that's basically gonna be like grating the outside rind, okay? So 2 teaspoons of that. I might just put in a little bit of fresh lemon juice. I have it. I don't have a fresh lemon, but I have a little lemon juice. So I might put in a little bit of that just to give me a little bit of that lemony flavor, but I don't want to make it too wet. All right, so we are gonna stir this all up, right? Let's get all of that, the baking soda, baking powder, and salt mixed up with our flour. Stir that all up really good. And now we are gonna grab our butter out of the freezer and we are gonna add it in here. And we're just gonna mix it with our hands. So if you ever watch the Great British Baking Show, you know, they talk about laminating their pastry and stuff. This is what they're kind of spreading out their cold butter, and you'll see that they always put their butter like in the freezer. And whenever you're making like a crust and stuff, you want your butter to be really cold so it disperses well. And then it can kind of create those little layers, right? Okay, it's crazy that a 1/4 cup of butter has that much, it makes that much of the grated butter. So we don't want to handle it too much because our hands will make it melt. Okay, so there is our butter. And we're actually just gonna mix this up with our hands just to kind of disperse that butter, get it all kind of mixed with that flour. As compared to having, like when you're making pie crust, you know, you're having to like crush, if you put in like whole chunks of butter, you're having to make it into small pieces. This just makes it so much easier. So, all right, so then we did that. We are gonna mix it, and now we are gonna fold in our blueberries. So the blueberries we are doing, 1 1/4 cups. And I love using like wild blueberries because they're littler and they can mix in a little better. They're a little bit less wet. You know, big blueberries can really be full of juice. And that's wonderful, right? But in this instance, and I actually just pulled these out of the freezer. So, because I always have frozen blueberries. Right, okay, let's mix our blueberries in with all that goodness. That'll help to keep our butter cold too if our blueberries are still a little frozen. So, all right, so we are going to add our vanilla and our yogurt. And you know what, I realized that I kind of skipped that step. So let me just wash my hands real quick. All right, so we are gonna add in a cup of yogurt. I'll tell you what, it's hard to multitask. and to be live and all that stuff and have to think about what I'm saying. And if I sound really silly, right? So I'm just gonna stir up my yogurt a little bit here, and we're gonna do 1 full cup of yogurt. I gotta see, I'm gonna do, I'll just do 2 half cups. All right, so can you see, we're just putting our yogurt in our measuring cup. Now I'm gonna put 1 in there. The yogurt actually makes it super tender. Like it doesn't, you know, scones can be really kind of dry, and it makes it super tender and moist. All right, so I'm putting 1 whole cup of Greek yogurt in here. This is where we get some of our good protein from, right? You know, I just realized, why didn't I have my, my recipe is a little silly here. I need to, we should have put our vanilla protein powder in there, and I realized that that is missing off of my recipe. So I'm just gonna have to improvise a little bit. I apologize. I will correct that in the recipe, and I will send that out again. I take these recipes that are on my app called That Clean Life, and a lot of them I'm like, I wanna make this more higher in protein and higher in you know, fiber and stuff like that. And so I will add and I'll change the recipes up, but sometimes I forget to then put my change into the actual directions. So we should have put our protein powder in with our flour and our dry ingredients, right? So our protein powder, we are gonna add 2 1/4 ounces. And I'll tell you how much that comes to be when it comes, you know, just like as far as cups or tablespoons more likely. So I'm gonna put it on my little scale here, put my bowl down, and then we're gonna zero that guy out. And 2 1/4 ounces, there's 1 scoop. So my 1 scoop of my protein powder actually was about 1 ounce. So let's do 2 scoops. There's 2 ounces, exactly, goodness. And then we're gonna do 1/4 ounce. So it should be 1/4. There we go, bam. So that is probably about, might be about 1/3 or 1/2 cup. And that's of my protein powder. So I like, I think whey protein powder, if you tolerate it, is gonna be the best. It's the best absorbed type protein powder, right? As compared to like plant-based or pea proteins, and it's a complete protein. But I do think getting a quality one, I get this one off of Amazon. I love it because it's grass-fed, or it comes from cows that are grass-fed, right? So it's good quality, and it also has like minimal ingredients. And I'm not getting any kind of kickback from this. I just, with my clients are always asking what protein powder I really like best. And I always tell them this one. And I also think it's like very affordable compared to some protein powders. And I get it off of Amazon, and it just shows up, you know, at my door, right? So, let me see. So we're gonna put our protein powder in, and I'm actually just gonna kind of move this a little bit so I can mix it in a little bit with my dry ingredients. I'm gonna move my yogurt aside just a little bit, mix that in with my dry ingredients. Oh, look at that. Easy peasy, not a problem. My little mix up there. So yeah, so that would go in with the flour and the baking soda, baking powder initially, all right? And then we add our wet ingredients. So now we're gonna stir up our yogurt. All right, stir that up in there, beautiful. We are also gonna add in our maple syrup and our vanilla. All right, so we're gonna do 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and we're gonna do 3 tablespoons of maple syrup, which I see, are they in there? Goodness gracious, Kim, you forgot to change a few things, okay? There is our vanilla extract. I'm actually gonna put a teaspoon in of my, just my vanilla. We'll see, I haven't added, oh goodness, that's brand new. I haven't added, let me grab a knife here. I've never added straight up vanilla, but you know, I'm always willing to try something new to see how it tastes. Whoop. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla juice. But if you have the vanilla if you have the vanilla zest, that's so much better, right? Okay, and then we're gonna do our 3 tablespoons of maple syrup. All right, there's 1, 2, and this is pretty much our main source of sweetness in these, okay? And the blueberries, you know, you get that nice fresh blueberry sweetness. Now, we also have the, you know, you can use regular milk, you can use almond milk, you can use whatever kind of milk you like, because it's just to give us a little bit extra wetness. But we're gonna wait on that. We're gonna hold off and put that in once we see kind of what our dough looks like, and if we need a little extra moisture in there, we will throw it in. Okay, so we're just real gently stirring all this together. We really don't want to overwork this dough or melt this butter too much. So we really don't want to mess with it too much, but you know, we got to mix all the ingredients in. We're also going to be mixing it with our hands, which is going to be really messy. If I didn't say it already, make sure you have, if you are making it with me, make sure you have your oven on to 400 degrees, preheated it. So that that's warming up here while we're doing this. Okay, so I'm actually going to turn this out. I'm gonna actually put it onto parchment paper because it's much easier to clean rather than straight onto your counter. So let's just dump out our scones here, and we will continue. I know it's not all mixed and stuff, but we're going to continue working it while it's on our counter. All right. There we go. And then that way you can kind of get a feel for if it's too wet, you need to be adding a little extra flour, or if we need to add some almond milk to our regular milk just to get it a little bit more moist. So we're going to try to work this as little as possible with our hands. Can you see? See my messiness going on here? And we don't want to squish the blueberries too much, right? But, you know, it's going to happen. The blueberries are going to get a little bit squished just as we're kind of working our dough. Woohoo, this is messy. But it's cold with those frozen blueberries and the frozen butter. So, yep, now it's starting to get a little more sticky, so I might need to add a little more flour. Let's make sure we get all of the dry that's on the bottom. So I know this looks a little crazy, but you are going to, they're going to be kind of wet when we put them down on the sheet. It's not going to be overly like, it's not going to be like a bread dough, right? They're definitely more of a moist dough. All right, so I'm going to put a little more flour here. Let's make sure we have all the ingredients mixed up here. I know it looks like an absolute mess right now. Okay, woohoo! I'm gonna grab a little more flour, and my computer, of course, turned off. How do you hit your computer when you don't have fingers to be able to grab it with? Okay, perfect. All right, I'm just gonna put a little more flour here. So we might not need the and you know what? This might be a little easier just on the counter rather than with the parchment paper, because the parchment paper is moving all over with me. If you put a little flour down on your counter and do this, you're probably not gonna have to deal with that. But this way it'll be a little less messy. So we are still really wet. And I also put that extra, lemon juice in there. So I'm gonna just kind of push this down with the flour. And I'm gonna scrape off my hands. And we are gonna leave it kind of wet, and we are gonna make our biscuits and throw them on the sheet. So it's okay if it's still a little wet. All right, so we are gonna roll this out a little bit. I'm gonna have to wash my hands to get off all my dough. Let me do that. All right, I'm gonna have to pull the hair up. I'm getting a little warm here. Okay, so what you can do is you can grab your roller and let's get it nice and floury. Put a little flour on our dough, and then we're just gonna kind of gently roll it out. The biggest thing with the dough is we just wanna make sure that, we have all the main ingredients mixed up. And then we're just gonna kind of roll it out. So this is gonna make 10 scones, right? So let's roll out a nice big circle. Oh yeah, they're gonna be nice and purple from those blueberries. Okay, sticky, sticky. All right, so it's gonna be, I would say about 1 inch thick here. They are gonna rise a little bit in the oven too, okay? So, I know it's still sticky. Now, I just like to use a water glass, but if you have like a biscuit cutter, you can definitely use that too. We're gonna go right over to the side here. Also have your, grab your baking sheets. I like to put just my silicone mat on there, or else you can put down parchment paper to set it on. And I'm gonna actually just put this right over here. And so I'm just gonna scooch that down. 1, 2, and then you can grab a little spatula. That will help you to take these and then put them on your sheet. A little sticky. I should have put more flour down on my parchment. All right, I know they're gonna look a little sticky, but you know what? They're gonna be fine. All right, there's 2. There's 3, and even if we can go like this, put that straight on down. Beautiful. Where did that? Okay. Want to keep right next close here to the last one so that you don't have as much to have to make more out of. Right there. So 3, 6, 7. Ooh, this is going to come out just perfect. Sticky, sticky. I know they look a little crazy, but I promise you they're going to be delicious. All right. Okay, we got 6 there. There's 7, 8, perfect. Yeah, so this might actually be, I might have just a little bit extra. Whew. All right, there's that guy. Now let's pull together all of the messy bits. Oh, that side's really sticky. And you know what? As long as they taste good, even if they are an absolute mess, that's all that matters. Okay, so now I'm going to take this last one. So there I have 9 on that sheet. And I'm going to actually, so these need to bake for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm actually going to throw this sheet first into my oven. And then that way those can start baking and we can take a look at them maybe before we're finished here. So I'm going to turn my timer on for 15. Fantastic. All right, let's finish up with the messiness. And if you guys are just sitting here watching going, what a mess, I don't want to make that, then I get it. But I promise they're really, really good. They're very, very tasty. So the last bit, I'm going to put a little flour on to make it a little bit easier to work with. And so you can see that my my biscuit, you know, I probably should, I could have made them a little bit bigger so that, you know, if it came out to be right at 10, but it's all good. All right, so I'm actually just going to kind of throw together this last stuff that I have. And what's cool is that you can, if you don't roll it out as much and it kind of has some like lumps and bumps in it, it actually kind of will crispen up on those spots and it tastes really good. All right, so yeah, so we're gonna come out to have more like 12, I think. So 9, 10, 11. All right, so I'm just throwing these guys on here. Beautiful. These last ones will probably actually, because I mean, these look a little bit more like true scones, you know? So, you know, work with your dough. If you need to add more flour, please do. So maybe it's not quite so sticky. It was definitely not as sticky the last time I made these, but you know, it's all good. All right, there is 9, 10, 11, 12. So I am going to wash my hands. Ooh, stickiness. All right, perfect. Where's my towel? So that is our blueberry high protein scones. So if you make them, I would love to know what you think, how they turned out, if they were as messy as mine. Throw those guys in there. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions about that, let me know. I will make those little changes on my recipe and I will send that back out with the few little changes that I noticed were missing there from my list. But so next step, we're actually going to, I almost forgot, we want to put, I'm gonna take these back out, because we want to put a little bit of egg white on top, and that's gonna help to make them nice and crispy, or give that little bit of crisp on top. So I'm just gonna throw my egg white here. Just a couple tablespoons is all we need. And we're just gonna brush that over the top with your little brusher. Oh yeah, these are starting to rise. And then we're gonna actually sprinkle just a little bit of our cane sugar on top. Can you see? Beautiful, beautiful. Just have a little bit of like raw cane sugar. I mean, you can sprinkle regular sugar on it too. Just a little bit. It's just to kind of give this that little bit of crispy crusty. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on top, not much. All right, bam. Now we're putting them back in the oven. Now we'll throw that in our other ones. Yeah, these are starting to rise already. Get just a little bit of height on there. Oh my goodness, the blueberries look really good. All right, so bam. They're all in. Okay, perfect. So that is all I got. Like I said, if you make them and you want to let me know how they go, I would really love that.